Big Muddy, the father of all rivers. Many peoples have given him many names, but for those who have lived near him, he has always been a source of life, a boulevard of commerce, the lifeblood of a nation. His moods are many. His story is the subject of countless legends shared by the poets of many centuries and many cultures, who assured that his allure is woven firmly into the fabric of our nation's tapestry. His very romance spawned generations of devoted river people, men and women for whom the river is more than an estuary. It is an integral part of their lives. Ours is yet another chapter in the river's long book. It too is the story of special people and one very special lady. Since the 1890s, when the Delta Queen Steamboat Company was known as the Green Line Steamers, the company has always been led by visionaries, bold, pioneering spirits like its founder, Captain Gordon Green, and his wife, Captain Mary Becker Green, fondly known on the river as Ma Green, and their sons, Chris and Tom, who respectively succeeded their father as head of the Green Line. In the 1940s, Tom bought the Delta Queen following its service for the Navy and undertook the audacious challenge of her famous voyage from San Francisco to Cincinnati by way of the Panama Canal. No other river craft had traversed that famous ditch, and the general consensus on the river was that Captain Tom had spent too much time in the river sun, until, of course, the adventure proved a success. And the dreamers continued their dreams. In the 60s came the dynamic Betty Blake. Her persistent nature paid off when she spearheaded the nationwide effort that saved the Delta Queen from certain forced retirement when Congress threatened her with the same fire safety regulations it mandated for ocean liners. Today, the Delta Queen Steamboat Company remains a tightly knit family of river devotees, people with equally clear vision and determination, proud stewards of steamboating, a great American tradition, our national river heritage.
How'd the cruise go last night?
But like their modest ancestors, they don't hesitate to dream big dreams and relentlessly pursue them to reality. In the early 1990s, emboldened by their success and the popularity of steamboating, and inspired by the affection it commands in the hearts of those who have lived its legend, they envisioned a plan so audacious, so grand in scope, and indeed so financially daring, that it more than rivaled the purchase of a California steamboat for the Mississippi River. It was a project of proportions so immense that for less stalwart individuals, it would never have seen fruition. They dreamt of building a genuine 19th century steamboat, a grand, glistening white steamboat, every bit as authentic as the boats of the glory days of steamboating, but with the modern amenities afforded by today's technology. A true steamboat, not a tawdry, half-hearted caricature, but a real, genuine steamboat. A gracious queen of the river, like the legendary J.M. White of the renowned Great Republic. All wedding cake frilly, with plenty of ornamentation, and an authentic Victorian personality.
Okay, so what we were trying to create here was the queen of the river, a great Victorian lady. And she needed a crown, the pilot house. We took it right off the Charles Reebok, put it back there behind the stacks where it belonged. A very elaborate filigreed hat that she could wear. She needed a grand staircase, a way of sweeping up off the front bow into the main deck of the ship. We took that from the J.M. White, took it right up off the bow and up to the cabin deck. And into the ladies' parlor, this fabulous, over-decorated, over-furnished room. So this lady is framed by the stacks. We needed a steamboat that Mark Twain, when he saw it coming around the bend and down the river, would literally pee in his pants. It had to have these real, erect, masculine, powerful stacks, 70 feet off the fifth deck, with the fluting on the top, the fluting just moving out there, high-faluting stacks, and a paddle wheel. This is 1995, and we needed a paddle wheel that could drive a 400-foot-long, all-steel steamboat down the Mississippi River, and we did it. We got a gorgeous big old red paddle wheel and real steam engines. It's wonderful.
Al Luthmers, an architect by vocation and a romantic at heart, was head of the design team and coordinated the great undertaking.
Well, the original business concept came from Sam Zell and from Cody Engel. Cody was the chairman of the board. And he brought me in to kind of flesh out the thing, start to do the preliminary schematics. We based the business play on the Mississippi Queen. The objective was to get the capacity and the format of the Mississippi Queen and all the charm and the richness and the romance of the Delta Queen. We went out to put together our team, and it was critical. It was the critical element in developing this boat. We got Henry Beer in communication arts from Boulder, Colorado. Henry's probably the best designer in the United States. We backed up Henry with the AI group, Bill Levier and Susie Holland from Atlanta, Georgia. Rodney Lay was our marine architect. And Jim Isola, who was from New Orleans, helped us with all of the fine detail and a lot of the value engineering in getting the Victorian ambiance right on the interior of the boat. The objective was to fill the boat up and to build a great repeat passenger business. The key to that was authenticity. To make this boat inside and out, in the brochure, in the photographs, as you approach it, as you climb on, as you walk in, and after you've been there for 7 days, to feel like an absolutely sustained 19th century riverboat fantasy experience.
The Steamboat is a distinctly American contraption, the product of a fledgling nation's desire to burst the constraints of conventional thinking, even as it continued to expand its borders westward. It was the product of that uniquely American spirit of resolve and determination. And as one steamboat historian noted, the consarn thing ran against the current. What could be more American than that? Steamboating became a gracious, romantic way to travel a growing nation. Paddle wheelers strive to outdo each other with their elaborate designs, a show of Victorian excess that became known as Steamboat Gothic. From our wide decks, steamboat passengers could relax as the ever-changing vista of riverside America glided serenely by. Authentically recapturing and preserving the flavor of these grand vessels and the steamboating experience they offered in a brand new boat was the goal. The challenges were many and often seemed insurmountable.
The real problem was getting a tall stack steamboat underneath a highway bridge. In order to do that and get the pilot house right, the stacks fold down, all the way down, flat on the fifth deck forward, and the pilot house, which sits there so perfectly, is on a hydraulic elevator and sinks down into the boat. And there's a davit that picks up the little filigree hat on top of the pilot house and sets it to the side. And if we wanted to bring this to market as an authentic steamboat, we felt we had to take the trouble and expense and solve the technological problems to facilitate that.
The McDermott shipyard in Morgan City, Louisiana had never built a steamboat. But then again, there hadn't been a major overnight passenger vessel of this scope constructed in America since the SS United States was launched in the mid-1950s. The project would ultimately employ more than 550 American workers, engineers, artists, and technicians. Now, steamboats always seem to attract many a flamboyant character. The American Queen, as she would be named, would be no exception. She was formally conceived on the morning of June 21st, 1993, when Louisiana's no less flamboyant Governor Edwin Edwards and former Congressman Lindy Boggs pushed the button that started the first cut of steel. In their quest for authenticity, the folks at the Delta Queen Steamboat Company searched the nation for a genuine steam engine to propel her.
These engines came out of the Army Corps dredge Kennedy, which was last seen by the public at the World's Fair in New Orleans. The propulsion engines were still on board and available. And the company found out about them when they were researching to build this vessel. And which was common in the old days was to take engines out of an existing ship or one that had been damaged and put them into a new hull. So we pretty much carried on a tradition in that respect.
Once restored, these vintage engines were returned to the South and installed in the American Queen's engine room in April 1994. Ready once again to drive a paddle wheel and propel a river vessel. But as in many other aspects of this lovely lady, the late 19th century came head-to-head with the late 20th, and that even included our propulsion.
We wanted a paddle wheel driven steamboat. We wanted it scaled properly so it looked like a real paddle wheel for this by far the largest steamboat that's ever been built. But we also had to meet all reasonable, responsible, contemporary safety standards and contingencies on the river. And so we backed it up with an entirely second propulsion system. And that involves some fairly elaborate engineering that no 19th century steamboat builder ever had to deal with. And under the absolute worst circumstances that arise on the river, we're technologically prepared to cope.
The American Queen was built in modules, complete sections containing entire rooms, which soon spread around the shipyard. The pieces were fitted together like parts of a giant, precisely engineered puzzle. Slowly, the pieces were assembled. She began to look like a steamboat.
The biggest challenge to us is rethinking ourselves, getting out of the high-tech thinking and getting back to what the simplistic or more simplistic thinking of the 1890s was about. We find ourselves at times tangled up in computer programs and analyses of things where if we step back and just look at the simplistic way of doing things, the way people lived and thought in those days, we find ourselves in a lot better position to put the pieces together in the manner they should be put together on this vessel.
Elsewhere within the company, designers and decorators were planning our elegant spaces. The quest for authentic designs and materials presented new challenges. Helping to coordinate this gigantic effort was Linda Landisberg.
The design team did about 2 years worth of research and investigated all of the older steamboats, the great ladies of the rivers from the 1800s, of course the J.M. White with all its magnificent furnishings and interiors, and for the exterior, the Grand Republic was the main model. We also took a lot of information from the Mississippi Queen and the Delta Queen, which of course are two of our favorite steamboats, and we incorporated our favorite things and what our passengers' favorite things were about those vessels. And we had a gentleman named Stuart Gordon out of Los Angeles that actually traveled all over the country and would send us photographs every week of all the antiques he found, and we'd apply them to different spaces if we had the rooms planned and laid out.
Back at the shipyard in Morgan City, the American Queen soon outgrew the construction shed that was her nativity. In early July 1994, she was placed on greased skids and slowly, carefully, brought out to meet the world. To those eager to stand back and view her in her entirety, her slow crawl seemed to take an eternity. In fact, it took 2 days.
We like to think it's wanting to go towards the water, into its natural state. Any vessel this size up on the land is a bit of an unnatural surrounding for it.
A month later, her dry dock was carefully, slowly submerged, and her hull deemed watertight. She had passed her first test and rested gracefully in her element.
She's all you.
Her massive 50-ton, 30-foot wide paddle wheel was fabricated in the construction shed where she had been born, and was laboriously positioned and gently lowered into place in her stern. On August 22, 1994, dignitaries once more gathered at Morgan City to celebrate another milestone in the life of America's newest steamboat. It was the American Queen's blessing, and once more, former Congresswoman Lindy Boggs would be on hand to mark the occasion.
There we go. All right.
Now, integral to any self-respecting steamboat is her calliope. The Delta Queen Steamboat Company turned to Dave Moorcraft in Peru, Indiana, who fabricated and installed the American Queen's beautiful set of 37 shining gold-plated whistles and the keyboard on which they're played. She was almost ready. But even though her vintage engines passed numerous tests while tethered at her wet berth, the great lady had yet to begin her first tender steps to test the waters of an open river under her own power. On March 12, 1995, at sunup, she crept from her berth and nosed cautiously out to the open waters. Safely out of the busy shipping channel, her vintage steam engines were engaged, and for the first time, her huge paddle wheel began its designed task of propelling the American Queen.
I think she's going to be a charmer. She's going to be a nice boat. She's going to be different. She'll look different than anything we have, and she is going to look like an old-time riverboat, really.
Her wheels are turning, her diesels are turning, and she's the biggest boat ever designed for the inland waterways of the United States. Up over 100 feet tall on the stacks, 420 feet long, 90 feet wide. Amazing vessel, and this is her first day out on the water.
The sea trials proved the American Queen's capabilities, but they also proved much more. For the first time, the visionaries at the Delta Queen Steamboat Company were assured that their bold undertaking would be a success. They had built an authentic steamboat, and it worked. May 4th, 1995. This was an exciting day for those who love steamboats and relish in the romance of the river. For many people at the Delta Queen Steamboat Company, it was the culmination of 3 years of anticipation. The American Queen appeared through the glimmering haze. Dave Moorcraft proudly playing the calliope he had assembled en route. Hearts beat faster, and heads craned to catch what for many was their first glimpse of America's newest paddle wheeler. Jazz bands heralded her arrival. Her masters, Captains Lawrence Keaton and John Davitt, formally presented her to the people of the Delta Queen Steamboat Company and the city of New Orleans, who so eagerly awaited her.
And right now, on behalf of Captain Davitt and the crew of the American Queen, I would like to present the American Queen to the Delta Queen Steamboat Company, the employees and their families, and the city of New Orleans. Thank you.
With the American Queen's triumphant arrival in New Orleans, many years of aspirations and planning and almost 2 of construction were now nearing their culmination. The results of a nationwide scavenger hunt were now coming home, and each piece had a special location.
Sometimes the rooms did it for us, sometimes the pieces that we found helped us decide what to actually do with the rooms.
It's June 2nd, 1995. And an enthusiastic crowd of steamboat aficionados had gathered in New Orleans for the christening of the new steamboat. Angel Harvey, wife of ABC radio commentator Paul Harvey, both veteran steamboaters, snipped the line that sent the world's largest bottle of premium Tabasco brand pepper sauce crashing into the bow of the American Queen.
I christened the American Queen. God bless the American Queen and all who sail upon her.
Yes, this was a distinctly proud American moment.
She's spectacular. I can't wait to show her off to America. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
She set sail the next day on the first of several short shakedown trips that progressively took her upriver to Pittsburgh, the starting port of her inaugural cruise. She was greeted with enthusiasm at each new port she visited.
And here she comes. If you're anywhere within the sound of my voice and you want to see the most beautiful riverboat ever built, if you want to see history come to life right here in Natchez, Mississippi, then you need to come on down.
Bands played, moms and dads, grandmothers and grandpops, big kids and little kids, they all teamed down to the levee to welcome the river's new monarch. Sometimes they'd turn out by the thousands, each with a special place in their hearts for this very American lady. On Saturday, June 17th, she tied up for the night, a routine steamboat practice called choking a stump. Little did her crew realize the rate at which the level of the Ohio River was dropping. For the next 3.5 days, her unplanned beach party was the focus of the country, and certainly great entertainment for the people of Troy, Indiana, across the river from where she was stuck. But there's something about Steamboat that stirs the soul. Folks rushed to the riverbank in mobs to cheer her on when, free at last, she continued eastward towards her Pittsburgh inauguration. All along her route, folks again streamed down to the river to cheer the Queen on. On June 27th, her tribulations behind her, the American Queen proudly underwent her inaugural ceremony, signaling the start of her 16-night inaugural cruise, a journey that retraced the steps of the first significant steamboat voyage, the 1811 cruise of the Steamboat New Orleans. As history often does, it repeats itself in this feat. For helping inaugurate the nation's newest steamboat was a great-great-granddaughter of Nicholas Roosevelt, master of the gallant New Orleans. And aboard this historic trip was another Nicholas Roosevelt, the captain's great-great-grandson and namesake, Lydia. Midway through the 16-night odyssey, beneath the famous St. Louis Arch, the American Queen joined her sisters, the legendary Delta Queen and the magnificent Mississippi Queen, in an historic first gathering. Each pack of Queen's inaugural season cruises felt the historic significance of their participation. They, too, are part of the fabric of America's rich, historic tapestry.
The names of every passenger on this first inaugural cruise will be permanently engraved on the American Queen's bell. With every peal of that bell as the American Queen travels the rivers in the years to come, their names will ring out as very important persons in the history of Steamboat.
The American Queen is the grandest steamboat that has ever been built. She is virtually a 20th century time machine that takes people back to the 1900s and relives the full grandeur of Mark Twain's Mississippi River.
When her passengers stepped aboard for that history-making 16-night journey to New Orleans, her opulence and beauty more than surpassed their already high expectations.
Beautiful, like in our room. Oh, I mean,
it's amazing how they could collect so many antiques, and they are beautiful. And it does make it sort of like you see in movie pictures of the old southern mansions.
We're lucky to have one of those rooms that have a veranda on the outside, so we can sit there and watch the country go by, and we spend a lot of time there. It's really what I like about riverboating is that sort of thing.
My husband is a history buff. The aspect of this whole trip has been particular interest to us.
As I go around through different areas of boats, I'm picking up just unique things that I've never seen before.
Each place aboard the American Queen is special. Each room an experience. Her dining room was inspired by the graceful main cabin aboard the J.M. White. Once more, the 20th century meets the 19th. From a shiny modern galley to an elegant steamboat Gothic dining room comes an endless array of mouth-watering temptation. The American Queen features intimate lounges where, following Victoria, ladies once would retire to the parlor to sip tea. Gentlemen would repair across the vestibule to their own card room, smoke cigars, and engage in a few hands of poker. In an opulent salute to those floating theaters, the showboats of their day, there's a two-story grand saloon that's reminiscent of a small river town's opera house. Its private box seats and sweeping balcony offer enviable views of lavish entertainment, and authentic Victorian details abound, inspiring one steamboater to declare she felt like she was inside a Fabergé Easter egg. There are places to catch up on a good book or just relax. Places like the front porch of America, where guests can settle down with a coffee and watch the ever-changing river vista glide by. Or to learn more about Old Man River, they can visit the chart room and follow their journey on actual river charts. And there's the rollicking engine room bar, a night spot which designers intimate was actually constructed by the boat's engineers, who removed some staterooms late one night in order to have a saloon that was easily accessible to their engine room directly below. It's a nice story and adds to the romanticism of this great lady. Head down the stairs, visit the engineers, and watch those old steam engines at work. Of course, the American Queen has modern amenities like elevators, a bathing pool, and athletic club, a well-stocked gift shop called the Emporium. individual climate control in each exquisitely furnished stateroom, and even a beauty salon. Yet her roots are firmly anchored in steamboating's golden age. Yes, each room tells a story, but together they're the story of the men and women who dare to dream. Maybe for them there's a special place in the boat where all their dreams seem to come home. It's a gallery, appropriately named for Mark Twain, which houses a collection of riverboat artifacts and a 600-volume library of vintage reading material, including many works by Mr. Twain, whose chronicles of river life, even when disguised as fiction, vividly recreate the glories of steamboating and life on the Mississippi. So now the Grand American Queen has established her presence in America's rivers, steaming not only into the many historic, charming towns and cities that line their banks, but also into the hearts of the people of these communities, and into those of the passengers who traverse her elegant rooms and relax on her spacious decks. These special, stalwart, and hardy people who answer the river's call, who go where it takes them, who proudly call themselves steamboaters. It is for people like these who come back again and again to relive the legend of steamboating that the folks at a relatively small but enthusiastic American company of dreamers and doers work so tenaciously to see generations of dreams come true.